Hey, it's Adler from FM 1021, backstage at the Eagles Ballroom with Samir from Young the Giant. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming back. Nobody wants to come to Milwaukee at the end of November, December.
I slowly warm up to it.
just slowly. Mirror Master, I love. My God, I love this album.
Thank you.
And there's weird little things about it that I like the wooden block. And just little tiny things. I listened to it like a second time. I go, there's just little things you catch up on that I really like. I also had to look up whether or not it was a horror movie. Because for some reason in my head I go, was Mirror Master a horror movie? Like, where did the title come from? It's not, at least not on IMDb.
Wasn't. Only after realizing it did I realize that it's, I think, a DC villain, like a comic book
Oh,
villain,
really?
From The Flash. But that's not necessarily related. There was also this inspiration from Enter the Dragon, Bruce Lee.
Oh yeah, the fight scene where
Yeah, the mirror sequence. But yeah, I mean, there is some idea of characters on the record, and there's, but it's not necessarily like a villain per se.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love the title, but I'm just like, it's gonna bother me unless I look it up. I got to see if that was a horror movie from the '80s or not. It does kind of has that kind of like an '80s '90s prog rock band. You're like, it's a little mystical.
Mm-hmm.
Anything with mirrors in it, you're gonna get that draw.
Exactly.
Which I
Yeah.
like. There's 12 songs on it. How many songs didn't make it?
Well, 38 songs.
38 total. 38
Yeah.
didn't make it?
Didn't make it. Yeah, we wrote 50 songs for this record.
Oh my God.
Pretty much right after we finished the third one. So it was kind of like full on, and we still are writing right now. And we want to release, some outtakes because, now we have too much stuff to sit on. We want to just send it out.
No,
Yeah.
I'm always curious. Like, I'm not a musician. I actually find it weird when people in radio are like, "Hey, I play guitar, so I know what it's like." You're like, that's a horrible thing to say to a band. I'm fascinated by what doesn't make it on a record. It's sort of like it's a very unknown, and I'm sure there's a lot of people involved with the album that go, it could have been 13, 14. You could have done 20 songs. I'm sure, right?
Yeah, we could have done anything. I mean, and the record itself could have been something completely different. But we just chose these 12. We thought that this was the right group.
So, but there we go. You're all there.
It's a slideshow here.
So,
like
as
this.
a band, you vote on it. Is it democratic or is it a little more?
It's democratic.
Okay.
It's democratic, and we like to say that it's majority rule. But for the most part, with the exception of like maybe one or two songs, it has to be unanimous.
And this sounds weird, but are there any of the songs or any song you've ever done that you're like, it sounds right, but it doesn't feel right, or vice versa? Meaning, like this song I love, but you're like, but the flow of the album is gonna get all shitty.
Oh, so many
if
times.
Okay.
So many times. Some of my favorite songs are ones that I don't think anyone's ever heard. Songs that didn't make it but are good standalone tunes. And even the songs that did make it, there were those moments. Like we have a song called Tightrope on the record, and we did 3 versions of that song before it felt right. Everything else, the melody, the lyrics, the chord progressions, everything was there, but everything else we just kind of threw it on the ground and tried to reconstruct it again.
So there's kind of a feel to it.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, sometimes it's best that I don't know anything about music because then I'm just like, good. I'm not coming from any. Here's how it was like for me with my album 20 years ago. No, it doesn't happen. Didn't happen. I'm just curious. Like, the process is always interesting.
Yeah.
And what gets left behind has to be kind of painful.
It's very painful.
Yeah. It's not part, like, people look at the album, even in this day and age where singles like are the thing, people still look at the album as a whole and go, all right, well, I get, especially when you have rock critics that'll say, give it 3 out of 5. You're like, well, that's like not even doing your job.
Yeah.
You're like, 3 out of 5 just says it's an album.
Yeah.
You're like, you're not being nice or mean. You're just kind of being nothing.
Yeah.
That's why just the scraps, not even scraps, the things that aren't there just are just killing me, especially with this album.
Yeah.
Because there's a cool flow of it.
Yeah, I mean, the record in a part is about identity, and for us as our identity as a band. And we've been doing this for almost 10 years now, and I think our sound is that we don't have a sound. We kind of change it up.
Yeah.
There's obviously a line that connects everything together. But on this record, we really wanted to embrace all those, eccentricities and try and do some weird stuff. Try and take things really minimal, try and take things to our rock roots, try and take things math rocky, glammy, disco-y, anything.
That is good, though, that you don't have a sound that you don't have to follow.
Yeah.
It's the Seinfeld of music. It's which is perfect. You guys are also very, I'll say, aware of your fans. You've done a lot of just since, and I'm gonna go back like a month. I don't know where you were, but one of the shows was bring your I voted sticker and we'll give you a free poster.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, that's being very and aware is the best word I can really use. I don't want to like say woke because woke is that's sort of almost disrespecting and kind of silly. Like it doesn't say, oh, so woke. You guys are so no, you guys are very aware of your fans. And there's another show you had in New Jersey, and there was a snowstorm, and it's a little thing, but you're like, it was like you guys are throwing snowballs at each other. You go, listen, the show's still going on. Be careful on the roads if you are coming. It's a tiny thing. Whoever posted it, it probably took 30 seconds. But if you're coming in 2 hours from a show and you're dealing with, this is Milwaukee, so you're dealing with some of the shittiest weather you're ever going to see. That's very, like me as a fan, very meaningful if I'm coming like an hour, 2 hours. I'm like, okay, the show's going on. We're going to plow ahead. We're like, we're going to go to this goddamn show because they said, and it's weird, even in this day and age, you'll get people that call, like in the morning show, is the show still going on tonight? Whatever the show, if there's bad weather. And I don't know. Like, I don't know, but like when the band says it's going on, you're like, Young Giant says it's going. Yeah. But, I mean, with fans, I don't want to say like what's the best and worst thing you've ever had with fans, but do you just feel that's always been the responsibility of you guys to keep the fans informed? Somehow, and I think with the posters thing, that's like a reward, but just know that you care.
Yeah, I think it's been a slow process, This is our fourth record now, and I think it took the first two records to really understand who our audience was, who we were communicating with. And then when Home of the Strange came out, it started to become a lot clearer. And I think as with every record that comes out, it becomes more and more of a realization and this a close thing now. You go to different cities, you see the same, like a super fan who's there every time.
Yeah.
And you know them by first name.
People that follow you guys around.
And it's cool. And, now in this modern day and age, I feel like, anyone who's in a position of relative power needs to share some responsibility, and at least just get people to be aware of themselves. So,
but it's an easy thing. But some bands don't do it. I mean, and you've probably maybe opened for bands that you kind of looked at. Maybe you looked at them and said, "Wow, it's kind of like you don't care about your fans much. You guys aren't really spending a lot of time with them, and they're here waiting for you." Yeah. I don't name names or anything like that, but I mean, do you ever look at that and go, that's not us. We're gonna communicate as much as we can.
Yeah. I'd say we fall somewhere in the middle between I'd say what Taylor Swift does with their fans.
Yeah.
And
glad you're naming names. I don't know.
and people who have no concept of who those people are.
Yeah.
I think there's this fine line between that's kind of like we want to be connected in a certain way.
You're still in California, right?
Yes.
Are you in Irvine or are you?
No, we've been living in Los Angeles now for about 8 years.
All right.
Yeah.
Because I've been kind of following the fires. I have a lot of friends in there.
Yeah.
And it's far. I mean, it's far north of you guys.
Yeah, it was Sherman Oaks and Malibu, which is pretty close. But yeah.
But and like the other really big ones up north. But I mean, nothing affecting you guys at all.
No, we were lucky, very lucky.
It's just weird as a band because I mean, I'm sure you have gear stored somewhere. You might have, apartments or houses all over the place.
Yeah.
It's like.
Yeah.
It's weird when it hits like that.
Yeah, you have no control when these things happen.
Again, it's kind of an emotional thing. I don't like going into my notes, but I have to go to my notes for one quick question because she wanted to know. Christina Kissel asked the inspiration for the new Mirror Master album, and even though it's freezing cold here, can you play Heat of the Summer tonight? Which I kind of liked.
That's great. Well, the second one, Heat of Summer, unfortunately tonight we're probably not going to play that song because we have an hour set, so you have to figure out what we can and can't play. And the record, in a lot of ways, is a sister record to our third record, Home of the Strange. It's kind of taking our gaze and instead of like trying to figure out where we fit in the world, it's where we fit with ourselves. And I think especially in this modern day and age, everyone has so many different versions of who they are that they can put on on Facebook or Instagram and Snapchat or anywhere online, and there's this different snapshot of who you are that's not really you, it's your reflection.
Yeah.
I think it's very easy for people to get lost in those images and not be who they are. And I feel like in a lot of ways that's why we are where we are as a country, why we have a huge divide in our country, because we have no idea anymore of who's the master of those reflections. So it's an internal record, but at the same time, somewhat of a comment on where we are as a society.
The one last thing I have for you, and it's from the first time I heard Superposition. And it's like I said, it's the small things I like about this album, but the "With You" part where it goes up.
Yeah.
1, loved it. 2, noticed it right away. 3, every time I play it, I kind of wait for it. But 4, why? Like you could have used that with you. You could have kind of smoothed it out. But you just notice it. It's very unique.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like you're like, with you. It's just, what's.
Yeah, that's great.
It's super small and super micro, and it's very weird. I know.
Well, it's it's a lot of the things sometimes that people gravitate towards are things that are just thoughtless. That song we wrote really quickly, and it was one of the first songs we wrote for the record.
Okay.
And the demo is very, very, very close to what we have. Obviously, right now with the record, John Hill did a great job producing the record. Mm-hmm. Neil Avron did a great job of mixing it, but the demo, it was there, and I did the vocal take in one go, and I remember doing the With You, and it was just a thing that just stuck. Yeah,
it's cool. Like I said, I noticed it. It's the first thing I noticed about this song. I was like, that was kind of cool, and it was kind of like you're either talking to a baby or you're like doing that sound on somebody's nose. Mm-hmm. You're like, it's fun, and it makes a very cool song even cooler. Which I'll end this with what I started with. I love the album. Been playing the songs. It's great. And thank you for coming back.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Cool.